Japan boasts the most restorative sleep patterns and the highest concentration of centenarians anywhere on the planet, with countless individuals sailing past the age of 100 while remaining mobile, cheerful, and greeting each sunrise without joint pain. I was genuinely stunned when I uncovered this reality because while the majority of Western seniors battle sleeplessness, twitching limbs, and morning discomfort, elderly Japanese citizens in their 8th and 9th decades drift into deep slumber without relying on luxury bedding, synthetic supplements, or high-tech gadgets. For a long stretch of time, research teams from institutions like Kyoto University and Harvard Medical School have closely examined these so-called elite sleepers, determined to decode their hidden advantage. It was never linked to DNA. It had nothing to do with dietary powders. The true key lay concealed in the most obvious yet overlooked detail imaginable: the specific physical configurations they adopt while unconscious. 5 ancestral resting alignments quietly passed down through the generations proved to be the gateway to their profound replenishment, symmetrical skeletal support, and stunning lifespan. And this is where the story gets even more captivating. These configurations don't simply upgrade your nightly rest, they fundamentally enhance your waking existence, rejuvenating mobility, balancing circulatory pressure, and shielding cognitive function from the deterioration associated with advancing years. Stick with me for the full journey, because the moment you absorb how Japanese elders approach their slumber, your entire perspective on bedtime will shift forever. Before we proceed, if you have not joined our community yet, I strongly suggest you click that button and activate the notification icon so you never miss a wellness revelation tailored specifically for you. If this narrative resonates, type the number 1 in the comments. If it misses the mark, type 0 to signal how I can refine this content for your benefit. 1. The appreciation alignment and the restorative slumber of a long life. There exists an intensely moving and deeply human manner in which Japanese seniors conclude their waking hours. As the external noise fades and the bedroom dims into a gentle dusk, they settle onto their backs, palms placed lightly atop the chest or across the belly, lids shut, respiration drawing out into an unhurried, rhythmic flow. This fundamental arrangement, often referred to as the grateful rest, transcends mere physical geometry. It functions as a daily ceremony of thankfulness, a nocturnal homecoming to tranquility, and as contemporary clinical data now indicates, it may stand as one of the most potent elixirs for thriving past the age of 60. The reason this particular configuration is so remarkable stems from its ability to fuse the physical and psychological realms in perfect stillness. The simple motion of bringing your hands to your center does far more than pacify the emotions. It activates the vagal nerve pathway, which assists in steadying the cardiac tempo, optimizing digestive processes, and dampening systemic inflammation across the board. As you draw slow, intentional breath in this alignment, pulling air in for 4 counts and releasing it for 6, your entire organism shifts into a parasympathetic dominant state, that sacred mode of recovery and cellular reconstruction that the relentless pressures of contemporary life constantly sabotage. For aging individuals, this transition is absolutely critical. It permits the cardiac muscle to decelerate, vascular tension to dissolve, and the conscious brain to discharge the accumulated burdens of the day. Research scientists at Fukuoka University tracked a cohort of more than 3,000 older adults who engaged in pre-sleep conscious respiration. Those who devoted merely 120 seconds to settling into a grateful breathing rhythm prior to losing consciousness survived, on average, an extra 6 years and recorded a 50% reduction in sleeplessness and nocturnal panic. Neurologists in the United States have since corroborated that extended exhalations executed in a peaceful supine position boost cerebral oxygen saturation and enhance the brain's ability to solidify memories during slow-wave sleep, a biological function that a maturing neurological system urgently requires. Yet, beyond the raw physiological machinery resides a subtle sagacity. For the Japanese senior, this formation is not a drill. It represents an expression of elegance. Every single breath serves as a recognition that existence, even within its delicate boundaries, overflows with richness. It is a method of silently stating, "I persist, and this present instant is sufficient." For those who have crossed the threshold of 60, a period when personal setbacks mount and the horizon shortens, this ritual reclaims something irreplaceable: consciousness. It morphs sleep from a mundane escape into a profound spiritual rebirth. If you desire to adopt this ritual within a Western environment, the requirement is almost laughably minimal. No specialized bed, no electronic tracking tool, no pharmaceutical intervention. Prior to extinguishing the light, recline flat on your spine with a modest cushion positioned beneath your knee joints to alleviate tension. Lay your open hands feather light upon your ribcage or your navel. Shut your eyelids. Pull air inward through the nasal passages for a silent 4 count. Pause for a single beat, then stream the breath outward through pursed lips for 6. While the air leaves your lungs, conjure one tiny moment, just a solitary fragment, that gave this specific day meaning. Allow that thought to sail away with your escaping breath and permit the body to chase it into a state of profound serenity. With the passage of time, you will observe that your pulse rate settles sooner, cognitive chatter fades with greater speed, and the dawn arrivals feel softer. You are not merely drifting off. You are mastering the art of release. And perhaps this is precisely why Japanese elders designate this the slumber of long life. Because thankfulness practiced religiously when night falls does not strictly append extra days to your lifespan. It weaves deep peace directly into those existing years. Tomorrow, we will investigate the second hidden truth, a resting posture that reconnects your physical vessel to the planet itself. If you are still alongside me and extracting value from these revelations, please signal with a comment containing the number 1 to confirm your presence. Now, we transition to point number 2. 2. The grounded nap and the practice of reconnecting with the terrestrial floor. There is a humbling and profoundly organic sensation associated with lying in close proximity to the ground. In the Japanese tradition, seniors regularly recline or even sleep atop tatami, slim mattresses woven from organic rice straw placed directly upon the floorboards. To a skeptical outsider, this might appear to be a recipe for soreness or a purely outdated custom. However, within communities where this habit persists, individuals navigating their 70s and 80s rise with the sun free from the stiffness, spinal aches, and connective tissue fatigue that plague their overseas counterparts so relentlessly. Clinical experts today hypothesize that this ancestral custom, widely recognized as the tatami recovery, is more than a cultural artifact. It functions as a subtle therapeutic intervention for the aging structural system. As we move past middle age, muscle density naturally decreases and joint capsules lose their supple elasticity. Plush sleeping surfaces that once felt like clouds can, over a long timeline, facilitate postural decay, permitting the spinal column to warp and the pelvic girdle to rotate destructively. A rigid, unyielding base achieves something spectacular. It compels the musculoskeletal system into structural honesty. When you accept support closer to the planet's crust, your vertebral column sustains a neutral curve, your lung capacity expands, and the body progressively relearns intrinsic self-support. Studies emerging from Osaka Medical College identified that older adults who habitually dozed or rested on firm straw mats exhibited 25% less morning joint rigidity and drastically reduced incidences of lumbar distress. Furthermore, their nocturnal cycles were markedly more stable, punctuated by elongated intervals of reparative deep-wave sleep. But the genuine potency of the tatami rest extends far past postural mechanics. The simple act of descending to the earth and subsequently elevating back to a standing position constructs subtle functional power in the abdominal girdle and hip stabilizers, muscle clusters, fundamental to equilibrium and autonomous living as the decades accumulate. This is not mere passive resting. It is practical mobility training cleverly disguised as relaxation. Japanese seniors frequently assert that remaining physically close to the soil equates to remaining close to vitality. The body identifies the cool stability and unyielding nature of the floor as something ancestral, something intrinsically secure. It decelerates the racing heart, pacifies the reactive nervous system, and anchors the stray ruminations that so frequently plague older adults during the silence of the night. To incorporate a whisper of this Japanese insight into a Western lifestyle, there is no obligation to discard your existing bed frame. Start modestly. Experiment with a brief afternoon siesta on a stiff exercise mat or a neatly folded blanket set down on a carpeted area. Rest on your spine, knees slightly elevated and bent, hands resting gently atop your core. Shut out the visual world and breathe with deliberate depth, allowing every exhale to press you incrementally deeper into the floor. A mere 15 or 20 minutes can revitalize the body more completely than a lengthy nap in a plush reclining chair. For physical security, position a solid chair or a bedside table within arm's reach to provide leverage when rising. This transition maneuver is actually a core component of the discipline, naturally fortifying leg drive and postural stability with each execution. Gradually, you might detect nuanced shifts, reduced soreness upon waking, a more confident stance during daylight hours, and a lingering sense of grounded calm that persists far beyond the nap's conclusion. The Japanese hold a proverb: "The earth remembers forever those who rest upon its surface." Maybe that explains why their aged population appears to move through time with such effortless dignity. They have not severed their bond with the terrestrial floor either. Tomorrow, we will unpack the third sleeping secret, a form that aligns not solely your physical frame, but your internal spirit, delivering equilibrium to every breath you cycle through the dark hours. 3. The aligned spine and the poise of lucidity. There rests a subdued majesty in the manner by which Japanese seniors slumber, positioned flat on their dorsal side, upper limbs resting passively beside the torso, the entire physical form, tranquil and flawlessly stacked. They term this arrangement the posture of structural awareness. To those unfamiliar with the discipline, it may read as rigid or excessively austere. Yet, to those who have embodied it across a lifetime, it is a manifestation of serenity, a gesture of reverence for the physical vehicle that has ferried them through endless seasons of lived experience. Once you pass the age of 60, when each sunrise threatens novel discomforts and the spinal column starts to murmur reminders of mortality, this alignment functions simultaneously as therapy and meditative focus. The sheer genius of this straight spine sleep lies in its unadorned simplicity. When you recline on the back with the cranium leveled, the shoulder complex relaxed, and the lower limbs supported by a modest bolster, the spinal column effortlessly returns to its intended anatomical curvature. This structural adjustment permits the vertebral discs to unload, diminishing neural compression and the soft tissue strain that so frequently generates chronic agony in older populations. Respiration becomes profoundly rhythmic and deep, because the thoracic cavity faces no obstruction. With every outward breath, latent tension evacuates the musculature, the trapezius softens, the mandible loosens, and the cardiac tempo retreats into a slower gear. For older adults grappling with obstructed airways or shallow night breathing, this configuration assists in sustaining a clear tracheal passage and boosting oxygen perfusion. A controlled analysis from the Stanford Center for Sleep Sciences demonstrated that elderly subjects who adopted supine sleeping with precise postural alignment logged 18% longer durations of deep, regenerative rest and greeted the morning with 30% less cervical or shoulder pain. But this alignment transcends structural mechanics entirely. It roots itself in self-perception. In Japanese society, physical carriage is viewed as the mirror of one's internal equilibrium. Even during the vulnerability of slumber, the frame should reflect serenity and order. When elders lie in this fashion, they are not collapsing into unconsciousness. They are intentionally settling into coherence. There exists an undeniable self-regard in sustaining a long, dignified spine, as if silently affirming, "I remain resilient, I remain intact." For countless individuals, this evolves into a nightly act of intentional presence, a sacred window to dissolve the friction of the waking world while upholding the quiet fortitude that characterizes a meaningful existence. If you wish to transplant this approach into your domestic space, ease into it with patience. As you ready yourself for bed, lie facing upward with a supportive yet slim pillow beneath your skull and a secondary soft support under the knee joints to decompress the lumbar region. Allow your arms to settle without tension beside your hips or lightly upon your midsection. Shut your eyelids and inhale nasally for a measured count of 4. Release the air for a count of 6. Visualize your spinal column elongating as your physical mass sinks into the mattress, almost as if gravitational force itself were gently lulling you into unconsciousness. Maintain a dimly lit, quiet, sleeping environment. Ambient, wordless melodies or warm, low-lumen illumination can assist the sensory system in downshifting. As the weeks pass, this nightly ceremony re-educates your postural habits, soothes the sympathetic nervous system, and primes the mind for the dense, curative sleep that maturing bodies desperately crave. Within the profound silence of this straight-spine posture exists a message worth internalizing. Getting older does not equate to a passive surrender to decay. It signals a journey into deliberate alignment with poise. And once the body locates its true arrangement, the psyche inevitably follows, refreshed, stable, and lucid. Next, we will unearth a position that merges the fortitude of stability with the softness of surrender, a formation that fuses motion and tranquility into one seamless, gentle wave. If you remain engaged and find these insights worthwhile, please signal with a comment containing the number 1 to let me know you are still here. Let us continue unfolding point number 4. 4. The tilted rest and the gentle art of dynamic equilibrium. Nestled between the strictness of sleeping straight and the coziness of curling into a tight ball exists a balanced middle road, a soft, harmonized stance the Japanese call the diagonal relaxation. At a fleeting glance, it seems nearly accidental. The person lies partially on the dorsal surface and partially on the lateral side, one shoulder blade slightly withdrawn behind the other, a single knee bent just sufficiently to forge a natural cascading line traveling through the torso. However, for millions of aging Japanese citizens, this represents the most organic pathway to slumber, the one that feels simultaneously secure and liberated. For them, the diagonal relaxation is far more than a simple arrangement of limbs. It is a philosophical approach to aging with smoothness, maintaining a tightrope walk between exertion and comfort. Once we traverse past the age of 60, the body's alignment morphs into a sensitive equation. Too flat, and we gamble with undue stress on the vertebrae and glenohumeral joints. Too contracted, and our breathing capacity collapses. The tilted rest delivers a subdued solution to this dilemma. In this specific organization, the pulmonary bellows open with greater freedom, facilitating effortless air exchange across the entire night. The shoulder girdle releases because the gravity load of the upper body dissipates in a distributed fashion. Hemodynamic flow circulates without obstruction, averting the prickling numbness and pins and needles that can jolt older adults out of deep somnolence. A decade-long somnological investigation spearheaded by Tokyo University revealed that older adults who consistently adopted the diagonal resting pattern endured 22% fewer sleep interruptions and exhibited superior regulation of nocturnal vascular tension compared to those who slept rigidly on their flanks or backs. For those dealing with mild obstructive apnea, this tilted configuration contributed to diminished snoring by optimizing the alignment of the upper airway while avoiding the rigidity of classical back sleeping. To physically explore the diagonal rest, initiate by lying in a semi-rotated state, refusing both the pure side angle and the strict supine position. Cradle your head using a medium-density cushion that preserves cervical neutrality, articulate the top knee into a soft bend, and rest it upon a compact pillow or a rolled fabric cylinder to mitigate pelvic torsion. Allow one arm to drape across your thoracic region or clutch a soft buffer close to the cardiac zone. The alternate limb can extend along your flank or nestle lightly behind your spinal plane. Draw breath deeply via the nasal route, sensing the ribcage expanding in a supple cadence. Each exhalation should feel like the body dissolving softly into a state of symmetry, as if the planet itself were cradling you in a steady embrace. For safety precautions, particularly if physical mobility is compromised, confirm the sleeping platform is firm enough to allow you a smooth transition onto your back if discomfort arises. The poignant symbolism embedded within the diagonal rest is what truly elevates it. The journey of aging is not characterized by radical extremes. It is about discovering how to dwell in the transitional gray zone where resilience meets vulnerability. The diagonal slumber embodies this principle beautifully. It invites subtle motion without physical stress and fosters equilibrium without gripping control. Seniors in Japan frequently characterize this as sleeping between two dimensions, not fully activated and not fully dissolved, but resting serenely in the interlude. For those of us raised in Western societies that worship constant productivity over passive existence, this posture stands as a tender prompt. Even during the depths of slumber, we are capable of practicing stability. As you import this specific discipline into your nightly routine, notice the sensations not only within your joints, but also within your mental landscape. Over days and weeks, your nights will grow quieter, your mornings will arrive lighter, and the cadence of your breath will eventually mirror the rhythm of your accumulated years. Steady, patient, and utterly authentic. Still, there persists one concluding secret that Japanese seniors treasure above all others, a stance born directly from the womb of compassion, where flesh and spirit merge in a silent gesture of self-guardianship and tranquility. 5. The lateral coil and the embrace of protective slumber. A subtle intimacy characterizes the way Japanese seniors curve onto their flanks at the close of day. The knee joints draw softly in the direction of the torso. The hands lie gently nestled beneath the jawline or near the cardiac center. This specific arrangement, known as the protective curl, has been a staple of practice for countless generations and is frequently described as the slumber of compassion. Historical texts suggest that even the Buddha himself reposed in this specific manner during his final transitional moments on this plane, embodying the dual essence of modesty and peace. To the Japanese consciousness, this stance mirrors radical acceptance, the capacity to rest precisely as we currently exist, not as we once were in our youth. And as current medical investigation verifies, this ancient posture yields extraordinary dividends for the maturing physical and cognitive self. As the decades pile on, nocturnal rest becomes thinner and increasingly fractured. The structural body grows sensitive to pressure, the myocardium labors with greater effort to pump blood against resistance, and the restless mind stirs with vivid recollections in the silent obsidian of the night. The protective curl delivers solace exactly where the aging frame demands it most. Resting on a single flank inherently preserves the integrity of the spinal column, easing mechanical strain off the lumbar basin and the shoulder complex. It permits the respiratory passages to remain patent, diminishing turbulent snoring and slashing the probability of sleep-disordered breathing that impacts close to 40% of the population above the age of 60. Pulmonary ventilation intensifies, gastric motility improves, and the cardiac pump functions with heightened efficiency because gravitational force supports venous return, enabling the organism to restore itself without undue exertion. A rigorous study conducted at Kyoto University identified that elderly subjects who slumbered predominantly in the lateral decubitus position reported 30% fewer mid-slumber arousals, 40% less lumbar discomfort, and a 25% decrease in nocturnal esophageal reflux when compared side by side with those who lay strictly on their spines. To inhabit the protective curl correctly, settle onto the left lateral aspect of your body, the specific orientation most strongly advocated for cardiovascular efficiency and visceral processing. Ease the knee joints gently toward the abdominal wall, but stop short of compressing into a tight fetal knot. Preserve cervical neutrality by utilizing a pillow of moderate loft that precisely bridges the negative space between the outer shoulder and the ear canal. Insert a compact cushion or a folded cloth between the knee joints to safeguard pelvic alignment, and rest a single arm in a relaxed state near the facial zone or draped across the thorax. As you establish your nest, engage in slow nasal respiration for a count of 4, streaming the outflow through the mouth for a count of 6. Accompany each respiratory cycle with a visualization of the body melting into a pool of warmth, as if being tenderly secured by the darkness surrounding you. If arthritic changes or rotator cuff sensitivity are issues, trade sides on successive evenings to circumvent asymmetric wear, and employ an ancillary pillow to brace the uppermost limb. But moving past the mere biomechanics, the protective curl retains a subtle metaphysical wisdom. In Japan, it is perceived as a homecoming to the body's most primal survival template, that embryologic curl, which reminds us that we all entered life enveloped in security and silence. To adopt this sleep style after the age of 60 is to pay homage to that foundational memory, to offer yourself the reminder that genuine rest is not a capitulation, but a profound renaissance. It constitutes a conscious act of self-directed kindness, an act of releasing the diurnal struggle without residual fear. A great number of Japanese seniors claim they select this configuration not due to sheer physical comfort, but because it resonates as the most fundamentally human posture available. Should you test this tonight, you may observe something remarkably nuanced. Your breath eases into slowness with less delay, the thoracic cavity feels less burdened, and you descend into sleep powered not by bone-deep exhaustion, but by graceful surrender. You will stir not merely rested, but truly regenerated, a modest, silent conquest against the advancing march of chronological aging. And as we knit these lessons into a cohesive fabric, you will recognize that these 5 slumber alignments are not simple mechanical habits. They represent a complete philosophical framework for navigating the passage of time with dignity and grace, a framework that alchemizes simple repose into total restoration and converts each sundown into a dynamic act of deliberate living well. The deep code of rest, what Japanese elders reveal about moving through time with elegance. When we synthesize these 5 sleeping configurations into a unified practice, a far more profound pattern surfaces, a veritable doctrine of existence itself. The Japanese cultural mindset refuses to view sleep as a dead space wedged between periods of activity, but rather as a sacred cadence woven into the full symphony of a lifespan. Each alignment, ranging from the dignified vertical poise of the straight spine to the tender, vulnerable spiral of the protective curl, embodies more than simple somatic comfort. It signifies a continuous conversation, bridging the corporeal, the ethereal, and the temporal. For those navigating life beyond the 6th decade, these nocturnal ceremonies are not fixated on frantically chasing youth or frantically denying age. They are centered on the art of listening. Truly listening to the signals the physical vessel transmits, and then honoring those signals with deliberate focus. Contemporary Western medicine now mirrors what Japanese intuitive wisdom has articulated for centuries. The caliber of your rest dictates the caliber of your waking reality. Meta-analyses emerging from Harvard Medical School underscore that seniors who sustain body-supportive nocturnal postures consistently exhibit superior vascular function, sharper cognitive processing speeds, and markedly reduced circulating stress biomarkers. The deep, slow-wave sleep window is when the somatic structure executes cellular patchwork, the cognitive processor archives memory, and the cardiac engine resets its cadence. Yet, genuine deep sleep cannot be synthesized by swallowing a capsule or purchasing an astronomically priced mattress. It emerges from presence, from the disciplined unlearning that allows the organism to settle into self-coherence. The Japanese elder approaches the threshold of sleep not as a terminus, but as a deliberate ritual. Gratitude saturates the way they crease their linens, arrange their headrest, and subdue the ambient light. A quiet intentionality defines the way they lower their body incrementally, with profound care, almost as if conveying thanks to the skeleton and muscles for another full rotation of service to the sun. This subdued reverence alchemizes mundane repose into substantive physiological repair. For Americans and Westerners moving through their 60s and well beyond, this practice transmits a gentle yet firm reminder that authentic vitality following the retirement years does not stem from aggressive grind or high-intensity struggle. It depends upon softness, rhythmic consistency, and perceptual clarity. You have zero need to physically transplant yourself to the Japanese archipelago to access this profound peace. You simply need to reclaim sovereignty over your nights. Start this very evening. Decelerate the breath, stack the vertebrae, and rest as if you are finally returning home to a place you never meant to leave. Because in the final accounting, the manner in which we sleep broadcasts the truth of how we live, tranquil, symmetrical, and profoundly thankful for every cardiac pulse that salutes the rising sun. And now, as you rouse to these ancestral truths, pose to yourself one final, soft-spoken inquiry. If the hidden map to living longer resides not in how fiercely we push forward, but in how peacefully we surrender to rest, how exactly will you choose to sleep when darkness falls tonight? These teachings are designed to activate you to live with fullness and genuine authenticity. Right now, I want to turn the spotlight onto you. Pause for a brief moment of introspection and share the single most impactful insight you gained and intend to weave into your personal routine. Let us create a circle of mutual encouragement on this path of integrating these powerful realities. If this video served you, please leave a comment with the number 1. If it did not align with your needs, I welcome you to comment with 0. Your honest signal is deeply valued. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for a steady stream of content crafted with this same depth. Thank you for lending me your focus, and here is to the bold pursuit of living your existence